Hello, my friends. How are you today? I hope that you're doing well. Welcome to our English live. After I think it's been a year since I had a live in English. And this live is so important. We will talk about the latest immigration laws. As you know, with the Trump administration, so many things have changed. And unfortunately, as an immigrant myself, I do have my citizenship, but guess what? I also have to worry about being stopped by ICE, just asking about my immigration status. So we will learn a lot about the new immigration laws today with my guest, Mr. Salvador Cicero, one of Chicago's best lawyers. They take cases in basically immigration, real estate, and family, and so much more. But today our topic is gonna be about immigration. So we will learn a lot from Mr. Salvador Cicero. He is also a professor in Northwestern University. It's always an honor to be his friend, and it's an honor for me to have this live with him. So I will just send an invite to Mr. Salvador, and let's get started. Okay, 1 minute. Things are changing every single day. You have no idea. So today we're going to learn a lot. Hello, my friend. Hello, Salvador. Are you there?
I think we need to switch. There we go. Hello,
Perfect.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, enjoying this cold morning in Chicago, Illinois.
What else can we do? We need to try to enjoy it.
Well, we decided to live here, so we don't have much of a choice. I have my daughter here with me on the background, so I got a family support today.
Oh, hi, daughter.
Hi. She's out of camera, but yeah, says hi.
You're lucky to have a, very smart person as your dad. We are
Thank
so
you.
pleased to have him as a guest. Thank you so
Thank
much
you, and
for
give him a
accepting.
say. Come on, come on.
Hello.
We're just gonna say hi to everybody.
Oh, she's so cute. Hi. She's so cute.
Anyway.
She's so beautiful.
Yes, she is. She's a very, I'm very happy. She is what Mr. Trump would call an anchor baby.
Yeah.
So it's very appropriate that we talk about these changes that he's proposing. Um,
Perfect. That's nice. Nice. Very nice meeting her, and thank you again for accepting my invitation. It's always an honor when I see your successes and your achievements. I'm like, oh my God, he's so humble.
you're too kind. I have been very blessed. I think I'm very blessed, but the biggest blessing, aside from my wonderful family, would be the ability to do what I love. And you and I have talked about this in the other lives that we've done about just generally life, is
Yeah.
to take into account our blessings. And I think that for today's talk,
Hmm.
that is what I want everybody that is watching us to keep in mind. Things may seem difficult. There is opposition, but there's also a fight in us. There is truth, there is justice on our side. It'll take some time, but you just cannot take things sitting down, right? You have to react and act
Sure.
appropriately and just counter.
Perfect. Yeah, for sure. So before we get started, I, introduced you a little bit, but it's your turn to introduce yourself to our followers.
Of course. Well, it's a pleasure to have you all here with us. I have known Raja for well over 10 years, long time. I have been practicing for 26 years. I've had this private firm for 18. I am a recovering diplomat from Mexico, so I did that for about 8 years of my career. And our firm focuses on a variety of areas, among them immigration, real estate, corporate, accidents, etc. Right? We're based out of Chicago, Illinois. Our immigration practice is federal, and we also do some like government consulting, especially in the smart cities type of issues, anything that's related to technology and that. So it's kind of not your typical thing. I also like to teach, right? I've been teaching at various universities. I am finally done with Northwestern. I'm taking a break from teaching, so
Good.
because we have a lot of work now, we got to focus on what's going on right now. Um, I love to sing and write music as well,
Yeah,
so there's a little more personal thing. So yeah, so
that's
just
really
very
nice.
happy here working, and I'm happy to talk to you guys today.
Thank you. Thank you. Very nice getting to know you more and more and seeing your achievements. It's it's an honor, and for me, it's an inspiration. When you know someone who's getting ahead in life in general, it just pushes you to get better.
Right.
So our topic today is about the latest immigration laws, and
Mhm.
it's crazy how this January was like news after news, like shocking news after shocking news.
Mhm.
And as you know, most of my Instagram family are immigrants like myself, and many of them don't know what to do, what to not. So, yeah, so I would like to, if that's okay for you, so just tell us what's happening, what's the main.
Course, of
Hmm.
course. Well, let's dive right into it, right? I mean, we knew from the first period that Mr. Trump was president that he would inundate us with a barrage of nonsense, right?
Sure.
Uh, a lot of a lot of controversial measures, a lot of unconstitutional efforts, and just kind of mean-spirited type policies, right? I try to be objective. It's important, right? To be objective. You
Sure.
cannot like somebody, but you need to criticize them objectively, right?
Of course.
So in that regard, I think that the approach to everything that's going on and the environment is what's causing problems, right?
Sure.
Because we can all disagree on a policy, but I feel that at least in the Latino community, right? And you should know our practice includes people from the Middle East. It includes people from Eastern Europe, from Latin America, from Europe, from Africa. You know, we're Asia. We're worldwide, right? Our clients are basically international clients, all of them. And they come from a gamut of socioeconomic backgrounds. They're not all poor immigrants who are escaping hunger, right?
Sure.
Some are highly educated people that are coming as asylees, for
Hmm.
example, right? So let's talk about what has changed and what has not changed.
Sure.
There is two major immigration initiatives that Trump has been pushing that affect. Well, there's more than two, but I want to talk about two specifically that are pushing people to the edge. The first one is this idea against birthright citizenship.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Okay, so the Romans invented these two concepts that most countries have. One is called jus soli, meaning right from the earth, and the other
Hmm.
one is jus sanguine, which is right from
Yeah.
blood. And if you recall, what the Romans would do as they were conquering the world, their generals and their soldiers were abroad,
Yeah.
and they would have children. And those children would, if they had not been born in Rome, would not be Romans, right? So
Yeah.
they created this concept that if your
Oh,
father is a Roman, you should be a Roman.
okay.
Most countries in the world, most of them, have this concept. The Germans famously did away with it and then came back to it, right?
Yeah.
And you can tell, as you can tell by their soccer team.
Oh, oh, yeah,
Yes.
I hear
Uh,
so many jokes about that.
Yeah, and so, but all kidding aside, in the United States, there was a very specific exclusion. So people who were slaves
Hmm.
did not have a right to citizenship, even if they were born here. That's why we have the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment, they're arguing, only applied to slaves, doesn't apply to everybody else, right? Um, Certainly, it's a constitutional argument that they're trying to do away with an executive order. What is an executive
Yeah.
order? Executive orders are not laws.
Okay.
They have force of law in the sense that they can be enforced because the executive branch
Yeah.
has the ability to interpret policies. I will give you an example that people generally like. That would be the DACA case, right? Those are the
Yeah.
deferred action for childhood arrivals.
Yeah.
So, and I use this example because it differentiates so people can understand. So with
Yeah.
DACA,
Yeah.
in 1996, the law, that is the current law, the major immigration law hasn't changed. right? But the IRR in 1996.
Yeah.
So that's like the main framework. In that framework, they created something called deferred action. And deferred action um, is basically if let's say that you're investigating a case where somebody's smuggling migrants, then you want to use the migrants as witnesses.
Yeah.
You would offer them deferred action because they cannot arrange their status because they came in without inspection, right? They snuck in.
Yeah.
So you cannot offer them residency in exchange for their testimony, but you can offer them not to deport them.
Oh, so just
So this is
yeah.
this is how the government would issue you. Instead of deporting you, they would have a deferred action on your deportation, give you a work permit, and let you stay, and
Okay.
just continue to renew that. So President Obama said, "I think that this exists in the law, so I'm going to interpret it more broadly, and I'm
Yeah.
going to extend this benefit, which in the law is the executive has the discretion to offer
Okay.
it." So he said, and I'm going to interpret that I have the discretion and I'm going to open it up to these people who come up with these things that they have to, come in by this date and have no criminal record and be a positive member of society, graduate from high school, etc. Okay? And so here's how DACA was created. And it was created because there was a failure to approve the DREAM Act in Congress. The Democrats and the Republicans just could not agree, and it just never got signed. So this was Obama's way to fix that. And that has also been in litigation as to is it an overstepping of his functions or not. So, so then President Trump decided to do the same thing. And he said, well, I am going to interpret that this clause of the Constitution is not applicable. And from this point forward, there is no more birthright citizenship. Only those who are born of a U.S. parent, either legal permanent resident or a citizen, right?
Yeah.
Why? When we first started the IG Live, I said jokingly that my beautiful daughter was my anchor baby. He's always talked about people like that. So, for example, I was actually born in the U.S., right? But let's say that I was not,
Yeah.
right? If I came in from Mexico and I have a U.S.-born daughter, then she would not have a right to citizenship, right?
Wow.
If I didn't have status. That's his argument, that he shouldn't.
Yeah.
Right now, under current law, she does have citizenship. Now, her mother's also a U.S. citizen, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? That's basically it. Now, I was born in the States, but my parents were from Mexico, and they were here visiting for work. So they were temporarily here. So that means I would not have gotten U.S. citizenship. Right? That's what he said. That is up for debate. It's not a done deal. It is clearly unconstitutional under the current standard. What is the issue? The issue is the Republicans do control the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has voted to support
That's the problem.
not so strong positions from President Trump. So it is a political problem, but that's a political problem that can turn into a legal problem.
What do you think? Sorry, just in the same topic. What's the likelihood of this basically executive order becoming law? Is there what's the
Well,
percentage,
right now it's immediately on litigation. I mean, it was published on Monday, and on Tuesday, LULAC and other people filed lawsuits, and then the attorney generals of 26 states followed suit. And this is something that's going to have to be defined by the courts. It's not something that's just going to be accepted, right? It's a political move. And this is what I mean. Many of these executive orders don't necessarily have legal teeth, but they strike the fear in the hearts of people. And that's a problem for us.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you what is a law and what is a problem, and that will always be litigated.
Yeah.
There's the Lake Riley Act that was just entered into effect on Wednesday. What's that about? Well, last year, a couple of years ago, there was a Venezuelan immigrant who came in through the border, was granted time to present his asylum case. And then that guy went in and killed this woman, right? Which obviously is not something anybody can condone.
Sure.
And so then Congress, in a panic, presented this law. And the Democrats actually supported this, which is not all Democrats, but enough to pass it as a law and sign into law by the president,
Yeah.
it creates a problem for us because it says that if an immigrant, right, an immigrant, undocumented immigrant, commits a trespass or
Mhm.
burglary, larceny, and shoplifting,
Mhm.
right? Excuse me. Then that person can be removed. Excuse me.
Sure. Take your time.
Yeah. So the person can be removed. But here's the problem with that. In the constitutional framework that we have in the United States,
Yeah.
we have a concept of innocence. You're innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
So under the prior law, the IRA law, there's a slew of criminal acts that if you get convicted of those acts, then you may be subject to deportation,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's been in the law for 30 years. The problem with this particular law is it doesn't say convicted. It says arrested. And it gives DHS the right to grab you and kick you out of the country.
Oh, so
So
now it's just, oh, so before you needed like a proof and basically, but now even if you're arrested for something, you
in
can
no,
be,
no, in these particular things, and you have to go into the act and read what it says, right?
yeah.
Because it's things that are related to theft, like theft, larceny, burglary,
Yeah.
and shoplifting. Of these, shoplifting, I think, is the most worrisome in the sense that if you're committing burglary, that means breaking into a house,
Yeah.
right? I don't think anybody would argue that you shouldn't be kicked out, right?
I
But
mean,
here's
yeah.
but here's the issue. Here's the issue. Even in that case, if you are charged with shoplifting, which is a very minor offense,
Hmm.
right? What if you're wrongfully charged?
Yeah.
Then
You
and
know,
that means you didn't even get to have your day in court, and then they kick you out of the country. So that it seems to me unconstitutional. Of course, there's lawsuits, but currently that is the law. That is the law of the land.
oh, wow.
So that is a problem, right? And of course, then there's also, so those are the two things that are actual laws that have changed, right? Um, and the other thing is there is this fear throughout the United States of undocumented people.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to come raid my place of employment, right? And there are entire industries. In places like Chicago, you have restaurants,
Yeah.
you have construction companies, you have cleaning services. I mean, the gamut of things that basically the services that we all receive as people who reside here. Um, you know, basically these are all have a lot of undocumented people. And the other thing that we have to think about is we're talking about millions of undocumented people. This is not
Yeah.
a situation where you have one or two. We're talking about 15 to 20 million. We don't know for sure, but I think the minimum estimate is around 15 million people.
Wow. I can imagine how much that's gonna affect the economy because now we have cheap labor for in so many industries. Imagine they're all gone and then, you know,
It's not even cheap labor. Even if you pay them market rates, I mean, if you go online and you look at farm people
Mhm.
and people that are in other situations like, let's say, agriculture
Mhm.
or construction, they cannot operate the business without these people.
Yeah. Wow. I can't even
Yeah, and that
imagine
affects us all.
I cannot even imagine a future without these people. And so many of them spent most of their lives here. I know people lived here for 40 years. They have kids, grandkids. It's really, it's unfortunate.
Well, here's the thing that I think that is missing in our political discourse. We let these people here.
Hmm.
We allow them here. So I was talking to this woman this week, and here at work, I was having lunch, and then she was from Albania. She said, in my country, we deport all the illegal people, and they don't have a right to do anything. And I looked at her and I said, well, you can't compare Albania to the United States because the histories are different. For
Hmm.
starters, right, with the Latinos, they say,
Yeah.
how come there's so many people, Mexicans in Chicago? so far from the border. And
Yeah.
I say, yeah, but the border used to be right here in Arkansas. You forgot we lost the war and they took half the territory?
Right?
They also
Hmm.
took 2 million Mexicans that became Americans.
You know,
So
makes
you're the
sense.
Mexicans that
Exactly.
been here, right? And Mexicans could come off to the United States without a visa up well into almost the 1980s. So
Wow.
there's people who would just come back and forth. We had the Bracero program, right? And the other thing that's interesting about the United States, unlike
Mhm.
other countries, is that undocumented people here can pay taxes.
Oh,
The IRS would issue them, they would give you a social security, I think all the way up to like the 1990s. And now
yeah.
you can still get an income tax ID number.
I know
And that is
people.
how, yeah, go ahead.
You're totally right. I didn't know this is possible when I just arrived in 2013. I knew some people who were undocumented. They bought a house. They have a social security number, driving, doing everything like, you know, and paying. I'm like, they should give you some documents. I think you're paying the taxes.
Well, that's the other thing. And if you hear the rhetoric and you actually look at what people are factually speaking about, undocumented people in the United States contribute to the Social Security system,
Mhm.
but they do not qualify to receive
Wow.
benefits. They
See?
pay Social Security because they got to pay
Yeah.
taxes, and that's part of the taxes that have to be paid. But when they hit the age of retirement,
Hmm.
they don't get their money. And so it's disingenuous to say that that they're criminals and that they're not contributing to the economy. The other thing is the Pew Research Center, which does objective studies on various topics,
Hmm.
has plenty of data that shows that immigrant communities have the lowest rates of crime. I mean,
Yeah, right.
immigrants compared to to locally grown people have less crime. There's less criminals within the group.
That's very sad, that immigrants are always to blame, even as Muslim myself or Arab, every time you're so nervous about if a guy from Morocco does something, oh my God, we're gonna pay for it, they're gonna deport us all.
All right.
You know, I have a question, like Salvador, as a lawyer.
Mhm.
I don't know, sometimes I'm just wondering, like, how can you feel safe in this country, even with the US citizenship, when every president, everyone who comes, they come with their new executive orders, turn them to laws. I don't know. Like, I don't know if we should feel safe though. What do you think?
Well, I think one of the things that make this country work better than others, let's say on a day-to-day basis, is the rule of law.
Mm-hmm.
And we have very clear rules. If you follow the rules, you're able to defend yourself. And a big critique of what's going on with Donald Trump now is that he's trying to skip steps, right? Constitutional steps like due process rights,
Mm-hmm.
um, to just get his way. And there is pushback. That's why I was saying everybody who's watching us today should just feel calm. Why? If you buy into the rhetoric, then you become afraid. And here's the thing: ultimately, if you are undocumented,
Mm-hmm.
you know that you're not supposed to be here, right? And if you get caught by immigration, you're gonna have to go back to your country. Now, if you come from a country where there is there are problems or somebody's trying to kill you, you still have the right to request a convention against torture defense, and they won't kick you out if you can prove your case, right? You get your day in court.
Is it the same as asylum, or is
It
that?
is like asylum, but if you didn't file asylum within 1 year, you cannot get the benefits of asylum. If you win an asylum case, you get your legal permanent residency.
Okay.
However, only 20% of asylum claims are granted. So asylum is very hard to get, very, very hard to get.
Many people
Uh,
lie.
it's not because many people lie. For example, don't take a case if I think the person is lying. We as attorneys have a duty to ensure that we're presenting claims that are viable. I actually had presented a claim that I withdrew for those reasons when I realized that it was not correct. And I told the judge, we're withdrawing this claim.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went with something else because you cannot proceed on something. And this was a case where my client had lied to me and I caught him in the lie. It happens. It happens, right? But
Sure.
I mean, I can tell you that in all these years, I probably have only had once or twice in 18 years that's been the case.
Okay, so it's
So
not
it's not.
very.
No, because for us to present the asylum petition, you have to have proof. You have to have letters of support. You have to have,
Mm-hmm.
if there was political abuse, you need to document it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's not like people think. Now, here's another thing that's important, I think. Trump was talking about all the people at the border, right? We
Yeah.
talk like these people just showed up for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
There are reasons, and there are things we do here that affect people in other countries that create some of the conditions that force them to come here. For example,
Very good
Venezuela.
points. Thank you for talking about this. Very good.
So all the war-torn places,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'll give you an example. So in 1996, we began deporting. In 1997, we began deporting criminal aliens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a special focus on gang activity. Now, the gangs in Los Angeles had a lot of Central American, Hondurans, and Salvadorans, right? Mara 18, Mara Salvatrucha.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started deporting all these guys who were all bad. They were all US trained criminals, right? Doing
Yeah.
time for murder, doing time for racketeering, for all these violent crimes. And then we took them, and without telling the countries we were sending them, we started to send them.
Yeah.
And what happened is that these criminals overran the local police authorities. It happened in Honduras. It happened in El Salvador,
Oh,
right?
oh, yeah. I heard something like that.
Right.
They
They
ruled.
just took over. They took over and they started extorting everybody. And then they created lines of human trafficking back into the United States and smuggling of people and just a whole mess.
Mm-hmm.
That is what caused, in big part, not only, but in big
Yeah.
part, it caused the crisis at the border. That's why all these Honduran people started coming up here.
Wow.
So for us to say, oh, these people are showing up. Listen, it's not just because they couldn't find a job. These are not necessarily economic migrants,
Yeah.
right? And if you heard have the stories that people tell me, even today when I met with earlier today, I was at a workshop in Cicero in the suburb with some other lawyer friends. We were meeting with people and giving them advice and listening to their stories.
That's nice.
Yeah, we do that. We don't have much of a choice these days, right? We all have to do our part to help out. Anyway, so we're talking to all these guys from Venezuela, and the stories are just incredible, A lot of military people who at some point refused to beat up civilians, and they were punished.
Wow.
And, that's more like what you think about asylum. That's not caused by the United States. It's not.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that there are, what about the Middle East, right? The Syrian people that are coming.
Sure.
Or the Iranian people, the Shiites that in a situation where they're being targeted,
Wow.
Yeah, and as you know, my significant other is a former refugee from the Middle East, so I'm it's close to my heart, right? Is something where I know actual people in my family who've gone through this stuff.
By the way,
and so
congrats and say hi to her. She's so beautiful.
oh, thank you. Yeah, she's a lovely woman. Anyway, so I think it's a time not to be scared.
Mm-hmm.
It's a time to be informed. And so let me just share this. If we have people that are watching us that are afraid, just be prepared. You don't have to give information. It's very easy for a lawyer to tell you, you have a right to remain silent. But when the police stop you, you feel nervous, right? It's hard to say, I'm not going to say anything, right? You don't have to be that difficult. You could say, this is my name, here's my ID. Where are you going? I'd rather not talk about it, whatever. You can have some minor conversation, but you don't have to be like, I'm not telling you anything, right? It's very hard to do. It's very hard to do in real life. It's very hard to do.
True. I have a question because nowadays, before I used to follow you only, you know,
Hmm.
as a lawyer. Now I'm
Yeah.
following so many lawyers,
Right.
and I keep getting this breaking news, da, 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 breaking news, da, da, da. And I hear a lot about ICE stopping anyone, even a person looking
Hmm.
ethnic like myself, even
Yeah.
with a citizenship. They say that you need to take a copy with you or your US passport, or if you have like your parents who are green card holders, they need to take a copy. Is that true?
That's correct. Legal permanent residents have a duty to always carry their card with them, their green card. Okay?
Okay.
The issue is in the United States, we don't have a national ID card,
Mm-hmm.
right? In other countries, they have national ID cards that basically, if you have one, that means you're a citizen of that country. So the only thing you can carry with you is your passport, really, because your birth certificate needs to be coupled with an ID.
Mm-hmm.
Americans, right? U.S. people, right? People who are in the U.S.
Finally,
don't
I'm happy I
typically,
got my citizenship. Now I'm
but they typically don't understand that your driver's license is not a proof of citizenship,
hmm
especially in states like Illinois, where undocumented people can get a driver's
Just
license, right?
temporary driver,
Temporary
something like
driver's license, yeah, TVDL.
hmm
Which, by the way, my daughter and I were at the signing of that law because we were very
Oh,
involved at that. She was a little girl, yeah, and it was kind of a cute story.
that's nice.
But the point is that you should always have some evidence of your citizenship.
hmm
Now, last week or this week, the some ICE agents arrested a Puerto Rican family who were speaking Spanish in Milwaukee.
Yeah, and they are American citizens, right?
Yes, of course they're born and they don't speak English. And they wouldn't even let them say, hey, we're US citizens. So what happens in that case is that then they are going to sue the United States government. They're going to win and they're going to win money that's going to come out of our taxes because that is an
Wow.
unlawful
Yeah,
arrest.
because I don't know the law exactly, but I know that you cannot just assume someone is, for example, illegal from his language or his color.
Right.
Is there a name for that? So I
Yeah,
can take note.
it's called racial profiling.
Okay.
Yeah, you cannot just assume that somebody's undocumented just because they look undocumented, right?
In case that
Um,
happens to me, I'm gonna sue them. Maybe I become a
I,
millionaire.
I would have thought you're from Texas if I saw you. I didn't hear you speak, right?
Right? Okay, that's a good case. I'm gonna keep it in mind. I'm like, okay.
Make sure you wear your hijab so you can get pulled over and make some money.
I know, right? Oh, speaking of hijab, because many of my followers, like their parents are, like I have a friend, her dad, no, her
Yeah,
mom and dad, they're coming. So
yeah.
their I-130 is approved, and now they have an interview at the Consulate of America in
Hmm.
Casablanca. Now the
Yeah,
mom wears hijab.
yeah.
Do you think do you think it would be a problem I mean, before I know, no, but just
No,
now because everything is.
that's then most diplomats,
Mhm.
you know, tend to be people who love the world, know the world. They're posted in Morocco. They know the local customs. A hijab is an expression of your religious devotion,
Mhm.
right? That's what hijab is. And you should not deviate from who you are. And this
Of
is,
course.
remember, my significant other is non-hijab wearing Muslim. So,
Oh,
we've had the whole
I just
hijab
remembered
discussion.
what you
Yes,
told me before. In the future, if
yes,
you want to share, you're welcome, but I'm not gonna say anything.
yes. No, but I'm sharing
Mhm.
this because of the people watching us. I want them to understand this is something that I understand what it means,
Yeah,
right? And no, you should wear your hijab if that's what you believe in.
sure.
You know,
No, I mean,
you go in and you show up with your hijab. That's not a problem. Now, in the United
mhm.
States, does that mean that you're going to be racially profiled because you're walking around? I mean, if you walk right here where I have my office in the West Loop, there's a ton of students who wear hijabs. A ton
Mhm.
because we have the medical schools, we have the dental schools, we got graduate schools surrounding.
Mhm.
And people have to have their documents with them at all time just in case they get detained.
Perfect. That's true.
Mhm. Of
Thank you so much for sharing that
course.
because I hear many people talk about just being prepared, even if you have your citizenship. just take a copy or something. Salvador, what about processing time? Do you think that's gonna affect, or is there anything now that would intervene, like people from having their parents with them soon, or basically,
And the processing times last time that Trump was in office were significantly delayed. I think his overall policy is just to slow down immigration to the United States and to
okay,
combat the browning of America. You have to understand that unfortunately, this whole thing that's going on politically with Trump is very clearly associated with racial divide in the
hmm,
country, right? I mean, you saw this whole attack on DEI, which is diversity and inclusion policies.
that's a
Um,
very important point.
yes. And so, he has done away with this thing, and you know that a bunch of white guys just sued the US government saying they're being discriminated because they're white. When 60% of the country is white. That's why we, those non-whites,
Hmm.
are called minorities because we're ethnic minorities, and that's why we need the protection.
Sure.
That's why we have these policies, right, including women and minorities. So it is a big problem for us.
That's true. Um, but good that you mentioned this. Do you think he wanna? I forgot what we diversity and include. What do we call the law exactly to basically have balance between
Right.
minority and the?
Diversity and inclusion, yeah.
Do you think he can kind of cancel or because
He did. He
he did
basically
already?
said we're gonna do away with all the DEI. He calls them DEI. We call them inclusive policies. For equality and inclusion,
So
because there was
he
no
did already?
equality. I'm sorry.
He did
Yeah,
already?
he executive order. He already said that he's not following that. Yeah,
What does?
he directed he directed the federal government not to follow those anymore. And in fact, a lot of companies, large companies, followed suit and say we are not doing our DEI policies anymore.
Wow. I saw in the
Mhm.
news, I think it was Costco and Apple, they refused.
Mhm. Yeah, some are not. Some are going to say, you know what, we're going to continue because it's the right thing to do. Here's the thing about it, okay? You're talking about a country of 300 and almost 50 million people, right?
Hmm.
Yes, certainly it's still mostly white, but mostly white means, not 300 million. It means 200 and some million. And the other 200 and some are Black and Latino,
Yeah.
Arab, Persian, African, right?
Yeah, it's a big
Native
number.
American,
Yeah,
Asian. So, it's a lot of us. And this is a very diverse country. Everywhere you go, there's people from all over the place. This is a nation of immigrants.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so I don't think that serves us well at all.
Wow. It's just every day I'm like checking the news because I'm working on bringing my parents soon, myself, my
Mhm.
family. I'm like, now they're like, I wonder if we're will ever come or not,
They will.
you know?
They will. Don't worry. They will. If you have, as a U.S. citizen,
Hmm.
you should exercise your rights. You have a right to have your parents. You
Hmm.
can file paperwork for them, and they should be able to immigrate if that's what they should choose to do.
Hmm.
So don't wait. Here's another piece of advice. I hear a lot from my clients who have relatives that are, back in Asia or the Middle East, that, oh, I don't want to file because it's going to take like 10 years. This is the time to file. File for your brothers,
Oh yeah.
file for your parents. If they don't want to come, that's fine. First of all, the filing fee is like under
Hmm.
$600, right? And an attorney is going to charge you between 500 to $1,000. So you're talking about $1,500, which is pretty manageable. It's not like an amount that is going to break
Yeah.
you. So you can remember, you can sponsor your parents, your brothers, right?
Hmm.
Your spouse and your children. It's kind of like being Catholic all over again.
I know, right?
Your parents, your kids, your brothers, and your significant other. Okay?
You know,
So remember that
speaking of that, I'm gonna get like a free legal advice. I'm gonna take advantage of this.
all the time.
Uh, if you don't mind, of course. Let's
I know.
say when my mom comes
Uh-huh.
and as soon as she gets her green card and she applies for my sister, who's
Mhm.
17 right now, do you think does she have a like a hope to come? Because that takes a
Yeah,
long
yeah.
time.
As long as she gets it before
21?
she is, yeah. But you can apply for both. Apply for both.
Yeah, but for her, if I apply for her, it says like 10 years or something.
Just apply for both.
Okay.
See, that's what I'm saying. You apply for both. And here's the other thing. The most important part of this equation is we don't know what Trump's going to try to do. And they're trying to do away with those categories.
Mhm.
So the sooner that you get those on file, get it done. Don't wait.
Because I read something in the USCIS website talking
Hmm.
about the age freeze. Like, for example, if she applies for my daughter before, let's say when she's 18 or 19, and then she gets her visa or approval after she turns 21,
Right.
they count the age when she actually applied.
Right.
Is
It's
that accurate?
approvable when filed. But she can age out of a petition. That's
Can she?
why
Oh,
she could age out. So you should still apply for her, right? I mean, you apply for your mom and for her and for the whole family that you can apply for, right?
okay.
And then you let the chips fall where they may. At
Yeah,
least in this,
exactly. Just
I'm telling you why I'm giving that advice. I wouldn't typically give that advice, but I think in the current political climate, it kind of makes strategic sense to do that.
now, but let's say, I'm sure many of my followers also have this same question. Many of my friends who have citizenship, like myself,
Mhm.
don't want to apply for their siblings, not only because of the time period, but in the meantime, let's say in that 10 years, you cannot get for example, visitor's visa to the US, or for example, let's say if I apply for my sister, she has a case,
Mhm.
it's taking forever. She gets married with tomorrow to an American citizen, then it would be like, what would
The
happen?
application, the application based on marriage from a U.S. citizen has nothing to do with the fact that you, as a U.S. citizen, applied for her as your sister. They're independent bases. You can have three different applications from three different people on three different bases at the same time.
Oh my God, I
You
didn't
can
know
always,
that.
yeah, you can always abandon one and go with the other.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
wow. What about the tourist visa? They cannot get approved
A
if they want
tourist,
to just visit?
listen, a tourist visa, again, it's an independent basis. She has to prove that she has sufficient roots with the country of origin, and then she's going to go back over there when she's done visiting here. That's that's what they look at. It's not if you have a pending petition, you know. If
Wow.
that were the case, half of Mexico would not be able to come up and visit their family.
Muchas gracias. That's very important question and answer that, we got from you today. Because I know many people personally, that's why they say information is power. I know people who lived here for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't apply for any one of their families. They could have, a long time ago.
Exactly.
And the reason is like, no, if I apply for my sister or whatever, she's not gonna get a visit visa, or what if she gets married, then I will stop her. And I'm sure like maybe 50% of my followers having this issue thinking and
Yeah.
not even applying.
Right. No, you should always apply.
Perfect.
You should exercise the rights you have, and that is a right you have. You have a right to apply for your family.
Perfect. That's very good to know. Is there any other thing that you think regarding or like pertaining to the new immigration laws that you think are very important or to know? Any tips? What do you think?
Yes, you should know that if you get detained and you have been here more than 10 years and you have a qualifying relative, primarily children or spouse or a brother or sister, you can ask for cancellation of your removal. And that's a defense that you have. So people sometimes they get I have people calling me and saying, "Oh, I want to leave. I want to leave and go back to Mexico." And I'm like, "Why?" "Oh, because of what's going on." I was like, "Why did they stop you? Like, how long have you been here?" I've been here 30 years. I'm like, so in 30 years, nobody's caught you and you're working and you're fine. Why would you leave?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you want to leave, of course, you can go to Mexico. But the point is, why are you making this decision based on what? Now, if you get detained and you don't have much of a choice, then you get a voluntary departure and then you leave. But
Mm-hmm. That's funny. That's true. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I tell many people, I was talking, and that's funny that you mentioned this. I had this YouTube video in Arabic, and I was talking about this just generally in life. Many people, as soon as they hear some bad news, like I don't want to say the word because I don't want my Instagram live to be removed, but to basically end their life. Let's say, for
Yeah.
example, oh my God,
Yeah.
they're
They
gonna
don't
get
want
me.
to.
They get
Yeah. It's not the end of the world. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you mind if we take some questions? Maybe
No?
five.
Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we're gonna take few questions, talk about them, and then, of course, later at the end of this live, which is about like an hour, I invite my Instagram family. If you have any questions, if you have basically any cases, you
Hmm.
can reach out to my friend Salvador. He's a great lawyer, and yeah. But for now, just to have an idea, we'll take few questions. All right. Let's see. If it's in Arabic, I'll just translate. I saw one here.
Alhamdulillah.
Did you learn a little about the religion? I know that you're making, research. Let's see. What about students that have the F1 visa and still working outside of the campus, which is not legal for them? Are they
Correct.
considered or not?
Well, if you have an F1 visa, you are not supposed to work unless you have permission. Now, you can do an internship or an externship, which is outside the campus, and you can be paid for those sometimes. So it depends what it is. Also, at the end of your F1 status, you'll have 1 year for OPT, and you can work when you have the OPT.
Okay,
And in that period, yeah, but you should not work. If you're a student, you should not work because that'll be a violation of your immigration status.
perfect. Now, another question, not here, but I remember somebody asking it. It's let me see. What language be a question? Okay. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please just like type them there. Here, the question is, I heard President Trump talking about the possibility of getting a green card if you graduate from the US. Is that right?
If you
If not,
graduate from a U.S. what?
university, just basically studying here, getting a master's or doctorate
Oh, I
degree.
wish if that were the case, then everybody could have left years ago, right?
I know, because
No,
I was
that's not.
going to
It's
call
not.
my sisters, come study in the
And what
US.
is true is that if you have a graduate degree and you are sponsored by somebody, they will give you an opportunity to get an H-1B or an O visa, depending on what it is that you do. But no, that doesn't exist that you just graduate from a U.S. university and then you can just stay here now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Hannah, I have a question in Arabic. I'm just gonna ask her to repeat it and I'll translate. حنان شنو السؤال ديالك? What's your question, please? No, like in the meantime, just gonna ask
Mhm.
something. So those are the main changes, basically undocumented people, they're
Mhm.
trying to deport them. What do we call it? The inclusive policy. Anything else has changed?
Yeah, I mean, also the priorities for exclusion, right? They're starting to conduct raids in different parts of the United States,
Mhm.
and here in Illinois, we've had a number of them. Let me see. I see a question here. It says, "My husband started the process of immigration for me. It's now 2 years, and no answer for the first step, and he just got." His USA citizen passport, is that going to help? Well, I don't know if the husband was a resident. Perhaps that's what she means. Let me explain how this works. If you are a U.S. citizen and you marry a foreign person, you can immigrate them as your spouse. Okay. If the person came without inspection, meaning they came in undocumented, you cannot adjust them in the United States. They have to leave. But President Obama created the waiver program where you file the waiver in the US, and if you get approved, then you can leave and get your visa. And if you get denied, then you just don't leave. Okay? However, if your significant other came in with a visa and had inspection and maybe overstayed, that's okay. Then you can get them the residency between 6 to 12 months. Okay? It's a little discriminating, right? People with visas versus non-visas. But if you have a visa, you can adjust your status.
Perfect.
Okay. Now, if there was a petition from a legal permanent resident can also file for you, but it takes a lot longer, and you have to go through the consular processing. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We have another. Thank you. Thank you. I think I see another question. What happened to people that applied for the lottery 2024?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that will stop?
If they won the lottery, then they can immigrate. I have a friend who won the lottery and she got her visa that way.
Yeah, same. I don't remember what happened in his last term, Trump's last term, but I know many people's cases were, I don't know if they were denied, but something happened. Do you?
He is saying that he doesn't think that the lottery should exist. He doesn't support the lottery, the visa lottery.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Have
But
their applications be delayed? Probably.
But let's say if they are approved, the only possibility is basically being delayed, but not canceled?
Right. No, it's not canceled.
Okay.
You cannot undo something that exists in the law. Remember, the president can enforce it or not. And unfortunately, so what he does a lot is, let's say, if he doesn't have the legal power to do something, he'll just take forever doing it.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
That's why you need to have an attorney who will advocate for you.
Exactly. So if you don't mind, we're going to take the last question.
Sure.
And then if you have cases, please just reach out to Mr. Salvador. He's a great lawyer, and he'll help you with that. It's in Arabic, but I'll just read it and just basically translate. أنا دافعة VAWA. So this lady, she has VAWA, like 5 years ago. She applied for VAWA. It was approved, and she has a social security card or number and work permit up to this point.
Great.
But she doesn't have anything, basically green card or like a permanent residency yet.
She has to apply for that. Yeah.
She said, her lawyer said, with Trump's administration, she'll probably have to wait 5 years.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Salvador. I really appreciate. Thank you for your time, and thank you for taking our questions, because I know it's very expensive to have a lawyer, and you give us your time. So if it was outside of this live, maybe I'd have to pay 400 or something.
Yeah, probably 500.
Exactly.
Now we only charge 100. We only charge 150 for a consultation.
Oh, good to know. That's another reason. So that's good. Very good.
It's not so bad.
Perfect. So I want to say thank you for our followers. Again, if you have any questions, if you have any difficult cases or easy cases, reach out to Mr. Salvador. And I just give you, I don't know how to say that. Just if you have anything to add, please feel free to.
Yes. The one thing I would add is simply that you should obtain all of the right information, meet with a qualified attorney who practices in the immigration area. Not all attorneys practice immigration, and try to get some good advice from them before you make any major decisions in your life.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And of course, we will have more lives if you have time, and if you accept, maybe we can discuss more details about immigration if we see anything new. Probably.
Absolutely. Let's see what else happens. This is just the beginning. So let's see how things develop. I'll be happy to come back and chat with everybody.
We have 4 years, so a lot of action.
Sure.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good day and talk to you later. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.